entire game to victory. And Bunnyhoppor sort of confessed to me, as we were discussing, a potential game that he could have won in his previous series last week, that he felt like he was missing just little details this season, and that they're adding up and costing him in key moments. So even though he's got the good matchup here in the opener of the series, and that puts him in a good position overall, does mean that he's just going to have to get focused and honestly just be Bunnyhoppor. Be the player that we know you are, right? And you're going to give yourself the best possible chance to dig yourself out of this. But what a brutal spot it will be for Casie if he's going to end up perhaps putting the final nail in the coffin for relegation for one of his very best friends in the scene in Bunnyhoppor.
Yep, it's going to be a tough one no matter what for both of these players here. Casie choosing to just keep hold of that Mankrik in his opening hand, whereas Bunnyhoppor, as ever, subtle, taking his time over his mulligan. Is there anything key that the Warriors really looking for here? Is there anything huge that makes this matchup good in the openers, or are you just looking for like a generally decent curve?
I think, generally decent curve is a reasonable way to describe it, yes, but I do also think hitting conditioning is pretty huge. It's not necessarily a card that you have to keep in the mulligan or mulligan for, but we've seen already, right, just how a rank 2 conditioning into just spreading wide on board just absolutely blows our rogue apart. But I do think the most important thing to mulligan for is that smooth early game curve, right? Just so by the time your conditioning comes down, you're not already 4 minions behind on board and taking 15 damage, right? Because you just haven't hit any early game plays. So I think first things first, just hit that smooth curve. Play out on board, relinquish the pressure, imprison Gnarg. Perfect.
Care to make a wager, friend?
Yeah, it's going to be really nice to have that Fiery War Axe. Pretty much kills every rogue minion for the first 5 turns of the game that may pop up. This, I was going to say, okay, it would have interested me to see if Bunnyhoppor ever flirts with the idea of coining Playmaker this turn. Obviously not now, facing down Foxy Fraud would be silly.
Right.
But if there was an empty board, it's one of those plays that is risky, but could pay off huge, right? If Coin Playmaker lived, and then you can play Bumper Car afterwards and so on, it could give him a big advantage. But of course, facing down a minion that would guarantee its death, it's not going to be the option here.
I've definitely made that play against Rogue because, we were talking earlier about how Paladin really struggles to kill banner minions in the early game. It's literally like comboed Brain Freeze, right? That's basically it that can deal with it on an empty board if you coin it out on 2, and that's pretty difficult for them to have, honestly. So.
Yep. Basically getting some payoff there for just holding the Mankrik, just being able to play out and start to get control of the board. Although, of course, he'll know the weapons here. He now knows there's actually just a board clear if Bunnyhoppor wants there to be with Weapon Swing +2 Dark Moon.
Honestly, don't hate that here, right? You just play the 3 1s on the right-hand side of your hand. Looks pretty solid.
Especially because you would imagine Bunnyhoppor wants to save the coin for Ringmaster, right?
Yeah, I think that's why it's okay, because otherwise you're like, well, these Gnargs and this Sword Eater are just all getting in each other's way.
Right.
Whereas because you have the ability to go coin Watley on the following turn instead of Sword Eater, I think it's pretty reasonable. But he's going to use his Playmaker here, which, essentially is the same effect, right? He plays 2 1/1 rushes this turn to be able to clear up the board, but instead front loads a bit of extra damage with the Playmaker instead, which goes back to our previous conversation about how difficult this can be to deal with.
Yeah, this is... So again, if this Playmaker sticks, I'd love to just magically know the win rate of Warrior if it gets to stick Playmaker for 1 turn. Right,
107% rate.
Yeah, you know what I mean, though? It feels that way, right? That if this sticks, you just win. It is going to be answered by Casie, so I'm not going to pay off too much for Bunnyhoppor, but Casie did have to put in some work there.
What was Gia's phrase earlier? Casie had to go through as many logic gates as possible to get to that Brain Freeze in the end, but did eventually get to it. Didn't have the Brain Freeze in the hand initially, then went Swindle and still couldn't find it, so then had to go for the Secret Passage to eventually pick up the answer with the final mana.
That's like some kind of alternate version of a baby gate in the house, right? It's a logic gate. You've got to pass a test to get through. I would not buy those for my place.
A logic gate is a real thing, right? Just checking.
Yeah, I'm just making it more of a literal thing.
Okay.
As in,
Okay.
that's my brain just went to gates that would stop you entering places here.
Okay.
And how silly they would be in my house. Field?
It's quiet.
I guess with 2 field contacts, this is fine, right?
No one crosses the uncrowned.
Yeah, no, that seems reasonable.
Like, without the second one in hand, I'd be a bit afraid of just throwing a field contact down and it guarantee being dead.
Ooh. Yeah, you saw the mouse from Bunny. He moused over Bumper Car, then moused over Watley. That is obviously the other minion in his deck. But it is still pretty good this turn, right? Just on the surface, if he goes with Parade Leader Bumper Car and then has the 1 mana left over for another Dark Moon Rider,
Right.
allows him to clean up the board, push everything that he currently has aggressively to face, deal the damage. Honestly, don't think it was that bad a draw, even though on the surface it did feel a little bit like not drawing a card with the Ringmaster Watley.
These old bones just keep moving.
Oh, Parade Leader is just insane, isn't it? Again, it's not quite to the level of Playmaker, I'd say, but if you can stick a Parade Leader for a turn, that also dramatically increases win rate, I imagine. Especially when it's with Bumper Car. And already Casie under a ton of pressure.
Bunny goes about this a little bit differently, less aggressive with the weapon, uses the weapon to trade instead. This way preserving a Dark Moon Rider in hand and also preserving the Bumper Car on board with a value trade.
Not really a good Jandis either.
That is about the worst possible Jandis outside of 1/1s, right?
Earlier today, I Jandis, Shadowstep Jandis, and got the 1/1 in both of them.
Oh,
Yeah.
brutal.
At that point, I didn't even care how good the other one was each time. I was just like...
Yeah. But it's like 1/1, the 1/1 and the 3/2, right? Outside of those,
Yeah.
which are the turbo low rolls, like everything is just so consistently around a 4/5 kind of level, right? That whenever you hit a 4/4 or lower, you just feel like it sucks. And, yep, reasonable to expect that here from Casie.
Interesting building choice as well, having these Ogremancers in here. I do believe the cut is along the lines of one... let me check. It's like 1 Warmaul Challenger and 1 Tent Trasher from other lists we've seen. But at this point, I think it serves its purpose more as just a big minion than anything else, right? Like, yes, Rogue has spells, but I think the fact it's just a 3/7 sat on the board is the biggest factor here.
Too quiet.
Yup. Particularly, you know, with Ogremantzer being a card that this isn't really the matchup it's intended for, if you can just get it down in a reasonable, secure position. Yep, seems good.
This is a position you really don't want to be in here for Casie, where your board already gets, like, pretty much value traded down before your opponent's even played anything else.
Yeah. Now weapon coming back up online for Bunny. He's really just going to have weapon charges for every single turn of the game, the way this draw has panned out.
Do you think this is probably a good turn for Watley? He can squeeze this in easily and use the 1/1s to fill out the rest of the turn? Probably.
Yeah, I agree. That means you get hold of your Alexstrasza, and then just because you have damage from weapons this turn and next turn, then curving into that turn 9 means you are probably just going to be able to end the game with Alexstrasza at that point. Obviously, you know, we've seen Bunny over the course of the game just sort of giggling to himself as his Watley has got worse and worse as the Sword Eaters and Mechs and so on have been drawn, but honestly, having those cards in his hand already and then just being able to curve out with them, specifically with the Bumper Cars and the Sword Eaters, just representing so much board control and damage, respectively, hasn't worked out that badly to the point where now it looks like Alexstrasza is going to be able to...
Right. And there's just not a lot Casie can really do here, because the more defensive he plays, the more you feel like the game's just going to slip away just slower, right? Like that's all it is. Like this this Kazakus would have to be pretty nutty.
1 mana poison deal damage? No, he went for 5s. Okay.
Decides he needs something bigger. Because, like, okay, 1 mana poison deal damage, he kills one thing that he's got not much control over.
Alright, let's rip the stage dive.
Yep.
Find a way to chew through this 2-5 without using any of the potential face damage. That will do nicely. That is 11 damage potentially going face this turn already. Bunny only has to send 6 to the face and then can be responsible with the rest of his damage to just clear up the Kazakus even on the other side, since he has the Alexstrasza to follow this up. Oh. That's just game. It's just over. Forget about it. Wrap it up.
10 Treasure, Sottle's new favorite card.
Because you have so much overkill with the damage, the only real thing that you have to be worried about is like defensive Alexstrasza on the other side.
Right.
The way to play around that is to just build and preserve the biggest board possible, right? And just adding 10 Treasure to this board has kind of done that very, very easily.
Yep, just pre-stack the board with tons of damage, and as you can quite clearly see, 8 health to face doesn't really achieve much here for Casie.
I guess there's the fear of lifesteal deal damage to 2 minions as well from the Golem, and then combining that with like Tenwu and Shadow Step and so on. Might give Casie a way out, but again, solution is the same thing, right? Just build the biggest board possible, so everything still applies.
Yeah, there's the concede. The hits didn't really go where he needed them to go, and even if they did, I still don't think it would have been enough. So Bunnyhoppor, I guess, expectedly wins game number 1, as the Warrior matchup is pretty favored there against Rogue. But now it's Casey's turn to be able to pick into Warrior. So what do you think he picks here? Do you think he wants to take the Mirror, or is he confident enough with Paladin? Because already, I feel like Casey's in such a tricky spot.
Yeah, this is just kind of the breakdown of the series, right? When I said it first and foremost, is even if you have the back and forth counter picks available to you, you do fall to a significant disadvantage, basically just on a mind game from who got the best matchup in the opener in Last Hero Standing, which, you know, is a valid criticism of the format. But at the same time, I don't think Casie really has a go-to hard counter for Rush Warrior in his lineup, right? Which puts him in an even tougher position overall. So the way this series pans out, I do think that initial opening game of just hitting a favorable and then holding serve essentially and winning that favorable for Bunny, you know, could be a big turning point in not just this game, not just this series, but in Bunnyhoppor's season as a whole and what that means for everyone else around him.
A part of me thinks that the best option might be to just win the mirror match and just say, well, if I win the mirror match, then I've kind of put my opponent in the same position that I'm in now, but they can't queue a mirror. They have to queue Rogue or Paladin. It looks like that's going to be the case. Casie just going to be playing an exact true mirror match, as both players have the same deck list here. So I think at the end, I would have made the same choice here, Sottle.
Agreed, yeah, I think you described it perfectly, whereas, you know, Casie has kind of had his serve broken here by losing the opener, so his best way to come against that is just to hit a 50-50 and reverse the position, right? And then Bunny will probably have to queue Paladin into the Rush Warrior, which is, you know, certainly not a big favorite either way, and that gives Casie a chance to set up a sweep, right? He has to win this 50-50 and then, you know, argue whatever you want about the Paladin matchup after that. Then if he's able to win that as well, he has the reverse of what we saw in the opener, which is the big favorable against Rogue with Rush Warrior instead. So I do agree this is his best way out of the series.
It's also something I probably just wouldn't have guessed if asked. It's like, oh, what do you think is going to be the star deck of one of the matches? And it's like, oh, I don't think I would have picked Rush Warrior right now to be like, oh yeah, well that will just, you know, be the deck in the matchup. And I think it's down to the fact as well that both of these players have chosen not to play Mage this week, right? Which is the big one. Like for me, if you said, oh, what deck's got the chance of just being the awkward sweep deck? And I'd be like, okay, it's either Weapon Rogue or Mage, because Mage just has that ability to just win, right? So it's a bit of a surprising one that not only that obviously both players being in the same lineup, choosing to not bother with Mage this week.
Yeah, and I brought this up first week of Last Hero Standing as well, is that I thought a lot of players might get out of Mage, right? Because again, it goes back to my 1.2 to 1.5 wins theory in Last Hero Standing is like, it depends on how much faith you have in Mage at just being able to beat everything with Incanter's Flow or Deck of Lunacy or whatever, right? Because technically, in my mind, Mage should come out, it should win because it's Mage, but then someone should queue Face Hunter or Weapon Rogue into it, and you die, right? Like, very consistently at that point. So, you know, it doesn't seem like a very high number of wins deck on average in Last Hero Standing, so it surprised me that Mage was as popular as we were seeing. But again, I think that likely just comes down to that counter-argument of, well, go ahead and queue Face Hunter into me, I'll draw Incanter's Flow and still win the game, you know, which is still a possibility that Mage has.
I also think, based on conversations earlier, that in Europe, Face Hunter and arguably the Weapon Rogue aren't exactly overly popular decks regardless, right? Yeah. So it's like, it's not like it's one of those regions where we're getting super unexpected things all the time. So yeah, anyway, just an interesting note there on these players' lineups, but let's dive straight in to the mirror and the well played from Casie, as honestly, although this doesn't clearly just win the game, the Moarg makes a big impact because it's the earlier weapon, it's having a minion early on that can't be interacted with, and then the building on top of that guaranteed weapon equipped next turn is huge.
Yeah, it's so filthy. The problem is, though, is that Casie has conditioning that he's able to drop at rank 2 on a pretty juicy hand for a rank 2 conditioning to come down on. But I think he's just decided, oh, okay, it's because he picked up the second one off the top. That makes sense, yeah. But, I mean, even then, like, because of the response and the aggression that he had from Bunny here, I wouldn't have been surprised necessarily to see rank 1 conditioning come down there just to fight back against it. But yeah, I think motivated even more by the fact that he picked up the second one off the top there. Bunny needs some juice, right? Like, this hand is going to gas out fairly quickly if he doesn't hit, say, like a run thack off this athletic studies, some way to draw some cards, pick up his own conditioning. His hand is a little bit wimpy in terms of just big, beefy minions getting the job done.
He does have Corrupted Stage Dive, which basically makes a big, beefy minion for him, and, well, draws it for him, should I say. So he can still just Stage Dive whenever he wants to draw that.
And he's just not quite got the BFD yet, you know? He's not quite there.
It's working on it, though. Krastenov doesn't seem like a bad pickup to me, especially since it'll be reduced, of course. Next turn, he can buff his weapon. And I think, I like this a lot. Just don't randomly deal 3 to face. Just get a 4/3 weapon equipped.
Mm-hmm.
Or upgraded, should I say. Why Casey's camera's just tickling me. Here though, Krastenov will kill this off. It's just whether Bunny uses the minions to do the rest of the work or kind of overuses the weapon, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I do like preserving the minions here as much as possible. It's a very awkward board state, right? To leave behind 2 bumper cars and a 4/1. Not the kind of thing that Rush Warrior has a good time dealing with.
Oh, I can't even do the boom joke here because it's just the card's name.
He's going to go, Dr. Krastenov!
And everyone's like, he knows the name of the card. Woohoo.
Well done. You have successfully identified a Hearthstone card. Bare minimum requirement to cast Hearthstone, apparently.
Is it? You don't know many of the card names.
No,
Come on.
No, true. I stand accused, and you are absolutely correct.
Now, Casie has an awfully large hand, and I don't mean in number of cards, but in stats of cards here. Bunnyhoppor, they just have opposite hands. It's weird.
They do, yeah.
And then, honestly, Sottle, I'm not sure which one's best.
They just have 2 halves of perfection, right? Like, if Casie had hit double bumper car, but also just had double conditioning to go alongside that, then this would be absolutely insane. You want to just play 4 Dark Moon Riders this turn, Raven? All the way up with Rikara?
I was going to more suggest the fact that Rakara Warmore challenger next turn, which is a sweet interaction.
It is, yeah. Honestly, how stupid is my suggestion, though?
I want to say it's stupid because it's just funny to say it's stupid, but I just don't think it is. I think it's not bad at all.
Yeah, I guess because you have Crab Rider, right? It does make sense to get it down.
What's the
It's
point?
interesting,
It doesn't
right?
even have Wind Fury anymore.
That's true, yeah. It's a great point. But yeah, obviously, point being, like, you're never going to be able to rush a Dark Moon Rider into something and get a Rakara buff off it, but if
Right.
you have it preloaded on board first, they can attack face, and you can potentially just get 4 whole Rakara buffs off of your Dark Moon Riders if you preload them all, which was kind of interesting to me, but yeah, I might be getting carried away.
What if he just plays them all now? Is this the turn?
I wonder.
'Cause at the moment, the Bunnyhopper's basically missing a parade leader to be able to deal with this Ogremancer, and he might want to take the approach of, well, I can't deal with it in a good way, so how about I just ignore its existence?
I think he still does the Rakara Warmaul thing, right? Because I think Rakara Warmaul does 6 to the Ogremancer, so you're then able to just weapon it down, and then your 2 existing minions just get to attack face with Rakara in play.
Okay, yeah.
Pretty strong. I think I've
about
counted
the
it right.
Warmaul.
If Bunnyhopper's
It
doing it, I'm trusting that I've
Well,
counted
it goes 5, which would be 2 hits to 10, but he gains the health, right? Which means
Exactly.
3 hits, so it
He
makes
does
sense.
1, 2,
Yeah,
3.
you are correct. Okay.
Ooh, the juice.
And now Bunnyhopper
Crab Rider
very,
survives.
very quickly losing his advantage because conditioning really is kicking in right now.
Yes, it is. But it has also kind of kicked in at this point as well, right? Like, the minions have been played out. Right now, Troublemaker can't be played next turn, so the only minion in hand for Casie that currently has a conditioning buff on it is the ETC, which is a 2/5. Outside of that, like, his advantage of having had bigger minions is slowly running out, whereas Bunnyhopper's value advantage of just picking up more card draw and the bumper cars is still having still has a foothold in the game right now.
So Bunny has options here of Sword Eater and Crab Rider to clear the board. Feels kind of bad, but still. He could actually retain. Oh, I actually forgot his Crab Rider was buffed.
Yeah, his Crab Rider got the stage dive, so yeah.
Okay, so he actually gets to retain the Crab Rider on board as well.
Yep. Still probably using that to trade through the Blade Master on the other side, though.
If he goes Ogremancer, yeah. Because he could still just go Sword Eater Rider, right?
Right.
But yeah, gonna go for the Ogremancer instead. More health, I think, was the simple choice there.
A diet high in iron.
Bunnyhopper, I think, just holding on to these riders for a parade leader. Or playmaker, I guess.
Interesting. First or last this turn is the question. 'Cause obviously, whether or not you're playing it is not ideal, but Claw Machine is a up certainly.
Literally the best card.
In the world.
Yep.
Also like playing 2 additional riders potentially this turn because it is the Troublemaker turn on the other side, so that kind of, eats up attacks from Casie. Would mean that I guess the bumper cart and the weapon could deal with 1/3s, but then you potentially get to keep an entire Claw Rider, right? Like, I think it's still just enough disruption to be worth it.
He would trade the bumper car anyway, right?
True.
I think this trade always happens.
That's true. Obviously easy for me to say I'm staring at a Troublemaker, but, it's such a big flag, right? It's such a power spike turn 8 Troublemaker that I like the disruption. Yeah.
This is nice and tough because, again, I think I'd get caught in, I need a parade leader or a conditioning or something to make these 1/1s better. But you are right. I think them potentially soaking up 3/3s is pretty good here.
Yep. And now, Casie just says, well, I drew a plan, and my plan is 8 damage to face with Alex Straza, so I'm going to show my Troublemaker where the place is. That was not it.
Oh! Okay, so we can go Parade Leader, Dark Moon Rider to double trade into the Troublemaker?
Yeah, it's
Claw
actually
Machine?
enormous, right? That's so enormous.
And then he can see what he draws after that. Worst case, he plays a Sword Eater. Seems good to me. Oh,
Okay.
Just a 4-7 ETC.
Yeah, get that down. That's pushing lethal.
And again, without any weapons equipped, like, yes, Alex is scary, only if you're at 8 or less, though, right? So as long as Bunnyhoppor just keeps that in mind, which I'm sure he will.
I have no idea if Bunny knows just how precarious his position is right now, but like Casie just needed to not be set up on a 2-turn on the other side, right? He just needed to be able to go ETC Dark Moon Riders of his own and then set up that 2-turn lethal with the Alexstrasza. But yeah, having been met with all this stuff on the other side, he now just does not have that luxury.
You aren't even ready.
Oh! Oh, that's insane! Is that enough clear? Does that keep him alive?
Here for a good time. Here for a good time.
2 damage, 4 damage, 6 damage, 8 damage, 3 short, but I don't think there's enough, right?
It's actually so huge that he can't get through this taunt, right? Because if he could have put that 3 damage to face...
Yep.
Oh. That's just game. Bunnyhoppor wins the mirror, and that was huge. As we mentioned, if the warriors in this series are key. It's just the be-all and end-all of the series in general. And Bunnyhoppor winning that means not only is he 2-0 and of course just favoured in this match, but just retains his warrior. So now he has the warrior to just beat on Paladin, which he is quite capable of doing. And then worst case, he's got a mirror to fall back on and then a rogue as well. So although maybe not the best matchups you could wish for, Bunnyhopper's just in a great spot. And I think you can see then Bunnyhoppor, I think you'll agree, not historically the most emotional player on camera over the past few years, but I think even just winning a mirror to go 2-0 in a best of 5, so he's not won the series, clearly it showed how much that match meant.
Yeah, and like, you know, you saw when the Playmaker, the ETC, and the Dark Moon Riders started to come down, like, he clenched so hard, and I don't know what the, like, mythical last 2-mana rush minion that was going to come down and deal 5 damage to him was that turn, but he thought it was going to be there, right? Like, he 100% thought it was going to come down and end the game, and that's just kind of what it does to you in that position of being able to end the game in that spot, and you think the worst is going to happen in all spots because you feel up against it when you're facing relegation over a long series like that, right? So, you know, even though you quite rightly say that Bunny generally doesn't let too much of his emotions shine through, you can quite clearly see the level of stress on his face.
And I can't remember, and I couldn't see, couldn't pull the deck tracker quick enough, but like maybe did the Crab Rider, would that have done enough with Wind Fury?
Oh, maybe, yeah. Okay.
I can't recall if he had one left or so on, but anyway. Yeah, I think Crab Rider could have been the one. But let's take a look at Casey's last chance in this series is all on his Libram Paladin. Again, just the Libram list with some secrets in there, so it's not pure Libram. It does have that Alexstrasza as well for an extra bit of punch in the end game, which again I think is one of the weaknesses of just Libram Paladin in general and historically, is your damage is very obvious, right? You either have the board or you don't a lot of the time, whereas the Alexstrasza can just get you that little bit extra. It's very similar to what the Penflingers used to do, right? They provided the face damage.
I was literally about to say, we figured this out. I don't know why this took so long. Why play 9 Penflingers when you can just play an Alexstrasza and deal only 1 less damage for the same amount of mana? Like, it just seems obvious at this point. You just play Alexstrasza instead. Strictly better.
Yeah, you don't even need all those extra cards or to even think. Just you think less. It's 1 card, aim face. Done. But yeah, Casie does have all his hopes of progressing on this one deck, and it's going to be a tough one because this warrior is pretty strong. What are you giggling at?
Sorry, I didn't know this.
I'm trying to do my game intro.
It's called Horseman Uther. I didn't know this was a thing, and this has amused me enormously. You should have told me about this immediately.
I think it's less Horseman Uther and more Horseman Uther, because I don't think someone's gone, what should we call him? I just watched BoJack the other week. Why don't we just call him Horseman?
Horseman. That's his name. Horseman Uther.
Okay, if it makes you happy, Sottle, yes, that is his name, and that is how to say it.
Casey's even playing Galloping Savior in his deck. It couldn't be any better.
You're just playing one of those theme decks.
Exactly, yeah.
The horse theme. Here, though, Casie does have hold of a pretty solid opening hand, even before he draws the mulligan card. But then again, so does Bunnyhoppor. Wow.
Get Ganagged, idiot. Yep.
You slave. Well played. You love the voice line as well, Sol?
Mate, I'm very picky on which skins I pick up. I am still a classic skin gamer almost entirely across the board. I play Tree Hero for Druid because Tree Hero is amazing, and I play some other priest because Anduin is a nerd, and I hate Anduin. I don't even know which priest I play. It's just not Anduin. Those are the only ones I've ever changed, but I might just get this skin now.
I believe to translate that, Sottle plays Tyrande
Thank you.
as priest. Oh, jeez. And what is it? Hazelbark?
Name Hazelbark? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Tree.
Sottle's like,
Tree.
I don't know what I do play, but what I don't play are nerds.
It's Anduin.
Are you going to add Horseman Uther to your list?
I think I might.
Okay. Oh, you got to wait till Halloween, I believe. Unlucky. Here, though, Casie, already on the back foot, does have to go Sword of the Fallen here, and is going to be able to keep up at least a little bit if he coins out the Libram. But this just uses up so much of his stuff, and I know he has first day of school to help with the refill, but it's refilling one-drops against Rush Warrior doesn't quite feel as strong as it does against some other decks.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Playmaker? Anyone?
We've talked about this, haven't we? It's quite difficult to deal with if you just jam it.
Bunnyhoppor may be too afraid of the lack of follow-up for Playmaker, though I'd argue just Blade Master them, regardless of what the board looks like.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the worst, right? This is a hand that's crying out for a bumper car, though, right? If you play make a bumper car this hand and then start going off with conditioning and run thack after that, like that is probably just game at that point.
What now?
It's also extremely tempting to conditioning now.
True.
Because Blade Master at 2 attack is fine against Paladin. And also just having it played so it's done, because look at the rest of the curve, right? It just works out.
Well, I think also the biggest reason to play conditioning that turn that I was kind of missing is you tested Oh My Yogg on the previous turn,
that's true.
right? So your Oh My Yogg tester has gone. So when Oh My Yogg then does eventually come down, you're just never going to be able to play that conditioning if you don't do it now. So I think this does actually make a lot of sense. It's worth it, surely. I know floating a mana is illegal, but surely.
I mean, I was half looking at Samuro here, honestly.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, Samuro on the surface just seems incredibly powerful, right? But it's it allows you to preserve your 2/2, it spends all your mana, all of those things are great. But the upside of just sticking a playmaker here, and honestly, like, it should stick.
And
right?
having run thack.
And then you just get to go double run thack on the following turn. Like, maybe I'm just a greedy boy, but I feel like you were allowed to break the spend your mana rules that turn.
No, you're not.
Okay.
Moving swiftly on. No, I agree. It was tempting, but just sticking the 2/5 against Paladin, just also feels pretty great.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we've got a game. Casie just needs to draw a load of mage cards now.
Paveling Book in rare form, giving the absolute best card in the game, as always.
And run thack, I can't... Wait, +2, +3. Yeah, run thack will actually just kill an Aldor Trueseeker, right? It's 6 attack now?
It is 6 attack now, yeah.
Oof.
And this is how you
Okay.
know Bunny's locked in serious mode. His opponent going Babbling Book into Incanter's Flow did not even raise a smile from him.
But
That's
so-
how you know.
We've leveled up. Now you preemptively play Parade Leader and Playmaker for the Runthak turn next turn. Oh, now you're talking.
I like this, yeah. Just Ogremancer is clean. And this honestly makes sense. Like, if this was the curve that Bunny had in mind, where he just wasn't playing Runthak on 5, then
Right.
I'm fully in support of the curve that he played out on 3 and 4 as well. Makes perfect sense. And I think it is pretty much ideal, right? Just to land an Ogremancer here on an empty board against Libram Paladin, because unless they have...
Casey's like, what do I even do?
Unless they
can't
have
play
exactly Justice, and even then, like, there's a 2/2 taunt that spawns in the
Yeah.
way as well. Like, how do they actually deal with that situation?
I do like this Ogremancer because Casey's just like, I can't play minions because he rushes them. I can't play spells because they create more minions. It's like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Oh, Casie, I'm sorry. I know for you this is serious business and it's not funny from your perspective, but that was
It
just
was
funny.
very funny, yeah.
Yeah.
It was the audience member, oh my god, what's happening face.
That's yeah. Oh, Undertaker broken streak wrestling reaction man. Is that what you're talking about?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I want to say X Factor Man. I don't know if it's the same person. We'll discuss after, but most importantly, it was very funny. A claw machine? Kind of tough. They're all just good.
Yeah. They are all just good. At that point, do you just pick by title? Like, does Overlord outrank Doctor? Because I'm fairly sure those both
Either of them
Claw.
outrank Claw. Have you seen Inspector Gadget?
Ah, good point.
Oh, see, there you go.
Where does Inspector come from?
I feel like the Claw would have Overlords and Doctors working for him. Therefore, it's Claw.
All right, good point. Bunny agrees.
I mean, it just makes sense if you think about it, right? It's logical.
Yeah, Casie just in disbelief.
And this ogre, like, look at Casey's hand. Like, what is he supposed to do when there's just an Ogremancer stopping him?
Yeah.
And at this point, at this point in the game as well, the Oh My Yogs are almost pointless cards. The one conditioning's been played, stuff's buffed. Like, Bunnyhoppor could choose to just never play the second conditioning now.
Right.
If another secret comes down and just say, I don't need another spell, that's no problem. He's already played Stage Dive, he's already played an Athletic Studies.
Oh, filth!
Okay, I mean, that'll work. Kind of.
Now Cariel can come down and answer the board, and then the weapon can clean up as well. Huge turn, finally, for Casie. Exactly what he needed there to have some semblance of a grip on this game.
Well,
It's just infinite. You never even ask the question. Like, you could increase the size of Casey's board 7-fold and this still clears. Like, it's so much clearing power when you have all 3 of these cards.
and the best thing is, I think he can retain some of the extra buffs, right? You know, like the double buff effect? He doesn't have to use them all, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is the most... It's the most straightforward thing in the world, right? He just wants to kill one bumper card just so he gets the minions in his hand and then can play one, and then basically everything else is just done for him. Is just the 2 1/1s that spawn after this when he plays clear the rest of the board, right? And he can keep everything else. Such an absurd amount of clearing power when you combine all 3 of these cards together.
Yeah, and you know what? Fair play to Casey. He pulled out a pretty impressive turn last turn to at least make this game not completely over. But now, when we can see that Sword Eater was from the Claw Machine, I believe, so that's Omega buffed. There's an Alex that's buffed, but also just deals 8 from hand next turn. Like, I think he can bop with the bumper car, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I would have value traded there as well, interestingly, but yeah. Bunny has other ideas.
I'll tell you what, Derek's going to love the content he can get out of Casey's cam this game because there's literally still for every opportunity.
It's been an absolute banger in terms of reaction gifs, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, feel for him, obviously. He is still searching down playoffs, and as much as we poke fun, it will be a heartbreaking loss for him. Because again, he got very close before, right? And I think he will be seeking that opportunity to really push for playoffs and look for that one.
Oh, yeah.
And in the end, just really nothing he could do about the vast majority of these games, and it's going to be a clean 3-0 here for Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah, Casie is not a looking for survival player. He is a looking to do well at Worlds and potentially win kind of player. But huge congratulations to Bunnyhoppor. I know he's been frustrated over the past few weeks, and I don't blame him. Bunnyhoppor is simply just one of the best players in the world, and to have a rough set of weeks in season 1 of this year and potentially look at relegation must be not only upsetting but also just very annoying as well. And this was a much needed win for him here, and this doesn't actually dig him out of the mess. This doesn't dig him out of the mess he's in, but it is the correct path.
Still funny. Yeah, you might have noticed a theme developing through the vast majority of this recap, and it's imprisoned Gnarg just seemingly constantly on Bunnyhoppor's side of the board. Had it early in basically all situations. First game he just had weapons equipped the entire way through. Then he got the Gnarg again in the mirror match that Casie had to queue, and you saw Casey's reaction to that immediately, telling you all you need to know about how important Casie felt that was, and then followed it up again with another Gnarg. And that was a mid-expansion evolution of the deck where the original version wasn't really running Gnarg, but then the flirtation with that coming in as a demon enabled that Tent Trasher to then be a potential inclusion as well, and has really refined the deck even further, to the point where I think there was kind of a curve of everyone thought Rush Warrior was the nuts, then it fell off, and then people thought, okay, well I can actually improve the deck a little bit from here, and that's really brought it back in now with the Tent Trashers and the Imprisoned Gnarg, back to the point where it's a real force in the competitive metagame again. But rough series for sure from Casey's side, but a huge sigh of relief, I'm sure, for Bunnyhoppor, who's now giving himself every opportunity to make a run at survival this season.
Yep. And that does mean it was Bunnyhoppor and Yala who made it out of the group of death for this week in that Group D, which was a terrifying group.